Welcome to the Sleepy Oceanographer, where we gently explore the strange, beautiful world beneath the waves. Tonight we're sinking into the mysterious deep sea to meet one of the most curious creatures ever discovered, the blobfish. It's soft, it's squishy, and it floats without even trying to swim. But how does that work? And what kind of world does the blobfish live in? Get cozy, relax your shoulders, and let's drift down into the deep blue together. Before we begin, tell me, where in the world are you watching from tonight? Leave a comment down below. I love hearing from sleepy scientists around the globe. Far beneath the surface of the ocean lies a world few humans have ever seen. It is a place of eternal twilight, where the sun's rays fade into complete darkness long before they ever reach the seafloor. This deep and shadowy realm is called the Bathyal Zone, and it begins around 1,000 meters, or 300 feet below the surface. Down here, the world is calm, cold, and utterly still. There are no crashing waves, no beams of light, no bustling schools of tropical fish. Only quiet, only pressure, only the slow rhythm of deep-sea life. The water is near freezing, often just a few degrees above zero. And yet, in this cold, pitch-black world, life exists, delicate, strange, and beautifully adapted to the crushing conditions. The pressure is immense, more than 100 times what we feel at sea level. If you were to sink to these depths without protection, your body would be crushed in moments, but for the creatures that live here, this weight is simply the way of things. They have never known anything else. In this hushed underworld, sound barely travels. Light does not dance across coral reefs or shimmer on fish scales. Instead, everything moves slowly, deliberately. Time feels different down here. A single heartbeat might feel like an hour. Even the currents are gentle, brushing silently across the muddy seafloor. It's as though the ocean is holding its breath. This is the home of the blobfish. In the deep sea, flashy colours and quick movements are of little use. Instead, nature rewards stillness, softness, and silence. The blobfish does not dart or dash, it floats. It does not hunt or chase, it waits. In a world where energy is precious and food is scarce, survival depends not on strength, but on surrender. And the blobfish has mastered this art. It rests just above the seafloor, suspended like a ghost in the water, gently drifting in place. Its world is one of patience and shadows, where the only light comes from the occasional flicker of a bioluminescent creature, glowing like a tiny star in the dark. There are no plants, no sunrises, no noise, only the quiet company of other deep-sea dwellers. Crabs, sea cucumbers, and eerie, slow-moving fish that glow or pulse or shimmer with strangely light. Every day in the life of a blobfish is a meditation in stillness. The silence of the deep sea is not empty. It is full of hidden rhythms, the distant thump of tectonic plates shifting, the quiet vibration of deep-sea currents, the subtle movement of sediment as it settles to the ocean floor. The blobfish is surrounded by this invisible music, floating gently in tune with it. To enter the world of the blobfish is to leave behind the noise of our lives. The cars, the clocks, the constant push to go faster. Down here there is no need to hurry, no race to run, no deadline to meet. Just the peaceful passage of time measured by slow breaths and the quiet drift of the sea. And so, as we begin our journey into the strange and wondrous life of the blobfish, let us take a deep breath and imagine ourselves sinking gently into this silent world. Let the weight of the water press out the noise in your mind. Let the darkness soothe your eyes. Let your heart beat slow. For down here in the deep, everything moves at the pace of calm, and that is where our story begins. The blobfish is unlike any creature you've likely seen before. It doesn't glide through the water with elegance. It doesn't have sharp teeth, dazzling colours, or long flowing fins. In fact, when people first see photos of it, especially ones taken out of the water, they're often surprised or even amused. With its droopy nose-like structure, sagging skin and frown-shaped mouth, it's easy to mistake it for a cartoon character. But beneath that squishy exterior lies one of the most remarkable survival stories in the ocean. The blobfish, whose scientific name is Psychrolutes marcidus, lives in some of the most remote and extreme parts of the sea, off the coasts of Australia, Tasmania and New Zealand. It belongs to a group of deep-sea fish called fathead sculpins, which are known for their soft, jelly-like bodies and their ability to live at great depths. Blobfish are rarely seen by humans, not because they're endangered, but because they live in such inaccessible parts of the ocean. You'd have to travel down more than half a mile through cold, lightless waters just to catch a glimpse of one. And yet, despite its rarity, the blobfish has become something of a celebrity, though not for the reasons it might have hoped. In 2003, a crew on a deep-sea expedition pulled one up from the depths. When it reached the surface, where the pressure was far lower than in its home environment, its body collapsed and spread out like melted wax. Photos of this oddly deflated creature quickly spread across the internet. People called it the world's ugliest animal. It became a meme, a mascot of the strange. But what most people didn't realise is that the blobfish they saw in those viral pictures wasn't how the creature actually looks in its natural habitat. In the crushing depths where it truly lives, the blobfish holds its shape. There, in the high-pressure environment of the deep sea, its body doesn't droop or sag. Instead, it appears more compact, smooth, rounded, and well adapted to its world. It may still look unusual, but in its own quiet way, it is perfectly designed for survival. The blobfish doesn't have a skeleton like ours. Instead of hard bones, it's made mostly of a soft, gelatinous substance, almost like the consistency of jelly or custard. That softness allows it to withstand the extreme pressure of the deep. If it had a more rigid body, it might be crushed. But the blobfish's body isn't fighting the pressure, it's flowing with it. Flexible, yielding, and quietly resilient. Its skin is pale and pinkish, sometimes with subtle hints of grey or beige. It has small fins and a wide, flattened face. Its eyes are dark and beady, set wide apart on its head. It doesn't have a threatening appearance. In fact, it seems more sleepy than scary, more like an ancient sea spirit than a predator. And in many ways, that's what it is, a quiet presence, drifting through the deepest waters, unbothered by the chaos above. The blobfish's movements are minimal. It doesn't waste energy flapping fins or chasing prey. Instead, it simply hovers. It floats just above the seafloor, letting the slow currents of the deep ocean carry it along. When food passes by, perhaps a small crustacean, a speck of organic debris, or the remains of something that sank from higher waters, it gently opens its mouth and lets gravity do the work. It doesn't lunge, it doesn't chase, it waits, and it survives. This passive low-energy lifestyle may seem strange to us, but in the deep sea is the key to success. Down there, meals are few and far between. Any creature that wastes energy chasing after something may find itself too tired to go on. But the blobfish has mastered the art of patience. It doesn't need to move much, because it has made peace with the slow rhythm of its world. Over time, scientists have come to admire the blobfish, not for its looks, but for its brilliant simplicity. Its body is a blueprint of adaptation, moulded by millions of years of evolution to match a very specific set of conditions. It is soft because softness works. It floats because floating is more efficient than swimming. It waits because waiting uses less energy than action. And in the end, all of this makes the blobfish not ugly, but wise. To meet the blobfish is to be reminded that nature has no one idea of beauty. Some creatures shimmer and flash, others crawl and roar. The blobfish simply floats peacefully in the quietest parts of the sea. It doesn't need applause, it doesn't seek attention, it just is. And in the vast, unlit deep, that is more than enough. The blobfish is a creature defined by softness. While most fish have firm, streamlined bodies, stiff bones, and powerful muscles for swimming, the blobfish has taken an entirely different path, one shaped not by speed or strength, but by surrender to the deep. Everything about its body whispers of stillness and yield. It is soft not by accident, but by design, a living example of how evolution can sculpt gentleness into a survival tool. When we say the blobfish is soft, we don't just mean it looks squishy. Its body is made up of gelatinous substance, almost like jelly or custard. If you were to gently press your finger into it, though we wouldn't recommend disturbing a deep-sea creature, it would likely sink in slightly, then slowly bounce back. This gooey structure isn't supported by a rigid skeleton the way ours is. Instead, the blobfish has very minimal bone structure. It doesn't have powerful muscles either. There's no strong tail to propel it through the water, no fin structure designed for agility. Everything is loose, gentle, and light. Why would any creature be built this way? To understand the blobfish, we must return to its home. At depths of 2,000 to 4,000 feet, the water is dense and heavy. The pressure is so intense that anything filled with air, a human lung, a submarine's chamber, or a fish's swim bladder, would be crushed. Most fish at shallower depths rely on swim bladders to stay buoyant. These internal sacs of gas allow them to control their position in the water, rising or sinking as needed. But under high pressure, gas compresses, making such systems useless or even dangerous. The blobfish has no swim bladder. It doesn't need one. Its soft body is slightly less dense than the water around it, and that's enough. This subtle difference in density allows the blobfish to hover above the seafloor without sinking or floating away. Its body is its flotation device. Its softness is its strength. And because the blobfish doesn't need to move much, doesn't need strong muscles, in fact it barely moves at all. It may shift slightly to adjust its position or open its mouth to feed, but that's about it. Its existence is one of near-perfect stillness. Energy is saved. Effort is minimized. In the harsh, food-scarce depths, this softness becomes a survival strategy. While other animals burn energy swimming, chasing, and fleeing, the blobfish simply rests and waits. Its face, too, is shaped by this softness. The large, sagging, nose-like feature at the front of its head isn't a nose at all, but part of the loose tissue that forms its body. Its mouth looks like a frown, not because it's sad, but because gravity and pressure shape it that way when brought to the surface. Its eyes, round and dark, seem to float gently in its jelly-like skin. These features, while odd to us, are normal in the depths. They are the face of adaptation. In the deep sea, speed is rarely rewarded. In this dark, quiet environment, it's the creatures that move slowly, or not at all, that thrive. A hard body, in fact, could be a liability. Rigid bones might snap under pressure. Stiff muscles will require more energy. The blobfish avoids both problems by staying soft and light. Its body bends with the flow of the water, adjusting naturally to even the gentlest currents. It becomes part of the sea itself. When scientists first pulled a blobfish to the surface, they didn't realize they were witnessing a creature completely out of its element. In the low pressure of our world, its delicate body couldn't hold its shape. It sagged, collapsed, and melted into a pale blob. But in its natural world, under thousands of pounds of pressure, it holds a quiet dignity. It's compact, balanced, and entirely at home in the dark. The softness of the blobfish also serves as a reminder that in nature there are many ways to be strong. Not every survivor has sharp teeth, armoured scales, or powerful limbs. Some survive by yielding, by conserving, by choosing peace over force. The blobfish doesn't fight the ocean. It embraces it. Its body is a mirror of its environment, fluid, quiet and gentle. In many ways, the blobfish teaches us something profound. That softness isn't weakness. That stillness isn't failure. That sometimes the best way to survive is simply to be exactly as you are, letting the world flow around you. And in a world that often celebrates hardness and hustle, the blobfish floats quietly beneath it all, reminding us that gentleness, too, is a form of wisdom. The blobfish is a creature that seems to defy all expectations. Unlike the agile fish that dart through coral reefs, or the swift predators of the open ocean, the blobfish doesn't swim in the way we typically imagine. In fact, it barely moves at all, and yet it floats, gently, effortlessly, without struggle. It hangs in the water as if suspended by invisible threads, neither sinking to the ocean floor nor rising toward the surface. This delicate balance, this quiet, graceful hovering, holds a fascinating scientific secret. How does a creature without strong muscles, fins, or a swim bladder manage to float so perfectly in place? The answer lies in the blobfish's incredibly specialized body structure. In the crushing depths where it lives, every aspect of its form is tailored for stillness and buoyancy. Most fish use their muscles and fins to propel themselves through the water. They rely on active movement to stay afloat or navigate their environment. But this takes energy, something that is in short supply in the deep sea. Food is rare, and conserving energy can mean the difference between life and death. Instead of fighting gravity or battling the currents, the blobfish takes a different approach. It floats by being just a little less dense than the water around it. Its body is made mostly of a soft, gelatinous tissue, less dense than the cold salt water of the deep ocean. This near-neutral buoyancy means it doesn't need to swim to stay suspended. It doesn't need to do much of anything. It simply hovers, calmly, in the quiet darkness. This may seem like a small thing, but in the world of marine biology, it's an incredible feat. Floating without swimming, especially at such depths, is an evolutionary accomplishment. The blobfish's entire body works like a slow, natural balloon. Its lack of bones and muscles, often seen as disadvantages in other environments, become its strengths here. The ocean holds it, embraces it, and in turn the blobfish yields completely to its surroundings. To understand how remarkable this is, think about what would happen if the blobfish had evolved like other fish. Most fish rely on an internal organ called a swim bladder, which fills with gas to help control their buoyancy. When they want to rise, they increase the amount of gas in the bladder. When they want to sink, they release it. It's a complex, active system that requires constant adjustment, but in the crushing pressure of the deep sea, that gas would be compressed to the point of uselessness. Or worse, it could cause fatal internal damage. A swim bladder would be dangerous. The blobfish doesn't have one. It doesn't need to adjust anything. Its body is naturally the right density to simply be. It exists in a state of equilibrium, floating just slightly above the ocean floor without any conscious effort. It's a design of extreme efficiency, simple, passive, and incredibly well suited to its environment. There's a kind of poetry in this. While we often celebrate movement and action, the blobfish is a creature of rest and stillness. It has no need to move quickly, no urge to flee or chase. Its buoyancy allows it to drift quietly, waiting for tiny morsels of food to pass by. It spends its life in the slow lane, surrounded by silence and darkness, supported completely by the water around it. This floating, this effortless suspension gives the blobfish its distinctive presence. It doesn't interrupt the deep-sea world, it blends into it. It is not a visitor or a hunter or a wanderer. It is part of the fabric of the deep, stitched into the ocean's cold, dark layers. It doesn't need to make noise or assert its presence. It simply exists softly and completely in harmony with its environment. And in doing so, it shows us a very different way of moving through the world, a way that doesn't rely on constant effort or striving or competition, a way that allows us to float, not by force but by letting go. Just as the blobfish allows the ocean to hold it, we too might find peace and surrender. There is grace in stillness, there is wisdom in softness, and there is quiet beauty in the ability to float without swimming. In the vast and mysterious world of the ocean, most fish rely on an organ called the swim bladder to control where they are in the water column. It's like a built-in balloon, allowing them to rise or sink depending on how much gas is inside. This system works beautifully near the surface or in the mid-water zones, where the pressure is relatively manageable. But in the deep sea, where the blobfish lives, this common feature becomes a deadly liability. The swim bladder is a gas-filled sac located inside a fish's body. By adjusting the volume of gas, usually oxygen, inside this sac, the fish can change its buoyancy. If it wants to rise, it increases the gas inside. If it wants to sink, it reduces it. This allows fish to hover at different depths or swim up and down with minimal effort. It's an elegant solution in the upper layers of the ocean. But down in the twilight and midnight zones of the sea, things work very differently. At depths of 2,000 to 4,000 feet, where the blobfish makes its quiet home, the pressure is immense. The deeper you go, the more pressure the water exerts. Every 10 meters you descend adds another atmosphere of pressure. By the time you've reached the blobfish's world, you're facing hundreds of times the pressure we experience at the surface. This pressure is so powerful that it can compress and collapse gas-filled spaces. If a typical fish with a swim bladder were to dive that deep, the gas in its bladder would be crushed to a tiny fraction of its normal volume. The bladder wouldn't function properly. Worse, if that fish were rapidly brought back to the surface, where the pressure suddenly drops, the expanding gas could rupture its organs, causing a painful and often fatal condition known as barotrauma. The blobfish avoids this entire problem by simply not having a swim bladder at all. Evolution, in its quiet brilliance, has crafted a body that doesn't depend on fragile, gas-filled systems. Instead, the blobfish has developed a different kind of buoyancy control, one that doesn't involve changing internal pressure or adjusting gas volumes. Its body, made of soft, gelatinous tissue, is naturally slightly less dense than the surrounding seawater. That means it floats effortlessly at its natural depth, without the risk of pressure-induced damage. This lack of a swim bladder is not a flaw, it's a perfectly adapted feature. In the crushing dark of the deep sea, where pressures can exceed 100 times those at the surface, every gas-filled cavity becomes a danger. The blobfish's soft body sidesteps this completely. It is a creature built not for activity or agility, but for gentle suspension. It doesn't need to rise quickly or dive fast. It exists in one layer of the sea and has mastered it completely. Without a swim bladder, the blobfish also doesn't experience the gas-related stress that other fish might during vertical movement. But that's partly because the blobfish doesn't really move vertically at all. Its life is centered in one stratum of the sea, just above the ocean floor, where it floats quietly in the stillness. It doesn't venture far. It doesn't need to. Everything about it says, "I am where I belong." This simplicity is part of what makes the blobfish so fascinating. It lives without the complex internal mechanisms we associate with most marine life. No lungs, no bladder, no need for rapid bursts of movement. Just a soft, buoyant body drifting through the silence. Its very structure is a whisper of deep-sea engineering, one where survival comes not from fighting the environment, but from harmonizing with it. And so, in a world where we often see complexity as a sign of advancement, the blobfish reminds us that sometimes less is more. The absence of a swim bladder might seem like a disadvantage. But in the extreme conditions of the deep, it is an evolutionary triumph. The blobfish doesn't need to inflate or deflate, rise or fall, It has no need for adjustment because it is already perfectly tuned to the watery weight of its world. To live without a swim bladder is to live with trust. The blobfish lets the ocean hold it. No struggle, no resistance. It accepts the pressure, the darkness, the stillness. It floats not because it fights to stay afloat, but because it was made to. That quiet confidence, that soft resilience, is something rare and beautiful in nature. As we learn more about creatures like the blobfish, we begin to see that what appears to be odd or even laughable on the surface often hides a deeper wisdom. The blobfish, with its lack of swim bladder and lack of need, shows us that there are many ways to thrive, and that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply be exactly as you are, in the place where you're meant to float. The blobfish's body is not built for speed, strength, or spectacle. It is built for buoyancy, for the quiet magic of floating in place without effort. Unlike most fish that must actively swim to stay suspended in the water, the blobfish has perfected a passive approach. It doesn't rise, it doesn't fall, it simply drifts. Suspended just inches above the cold, muddy seafloor, it moves only when the ocean's currents gently carry it, like a feather riding a breeze too subtle for the human eye. At the heart of this ability lies a marvel of deep-sea adaptation. The blobfish's body is composed of a soft, jelly-like flesh that is less dense than the surrounding water. This seemingly simple fact gives the blobfish its quiet superpower, natural buoyancy. With no need for fins to flap or muscles to contract, it stays in place. Not because it is anchored, and not because it is actively trying, but because it has become perfectly attuned to its environment. Its entire body is like a living flotation device. Imagine holding a softly filled water balloon just beneath the surface of a tub. If filled with just the right amount of water and air, it neither sinks nor bobs upward. It simply rests there, balanced in the water. That's the blobfish. Its soft tissues displace just enough seawater to keep it hovering. It doesn't struggle to maintain this position. In fact, it would struggle more if it tried to swim like other fish. It is designed to do exactly what it does, nothing, and it does so beautifully. Because the blobfish lives at depths where the pressure is hundreds of times greater than at the surface, evolution has shaped its body to work with the pressure, not against it. At these depths, any creature with rigid bones or gas-filled spaces would have a hard time surviving. But the blobfish, with no bones to crack and no air pockets to collapse, is completely at ease. It has no swim bladder, no muscle-bound body, no bony armour. These things are heavy, dangerous, or inefficient in the deep. Instead, the blobfish has soft, squishy tissue that can flex and yield under pressure without harm. It doesn't resist the ocean, it blends into it. There is also no need for speed in the blobfish's quiet world. Its food, mostly small crustaceans, plankton, or decaying organic matter, drifts slowly through the water or settles gently on the seafloor. There is no chase, no pursuit. When a morsel of food happens to pass by, the blobfish opens its mouth and allows it to drift in. Its feeding method is passive, relying on patience rather than power. It can afford to wait because its energy demands are so low. It doesn't burn calories swimming or hunting. It simply exists, gently bobbing in the black stillness. This passive floating serves another purpose. It reduces attention. In the deep sea, predators are rare but deadly. Sudden movement or bursts of light can attract unwanted visitors. The blobfish's low-profile stillness and almost featureless form help it remain invisible in a world of shadows. It is neither predator nor prey in any conventional sense. It doesn't threaten and it doesn't provoke. It simply is. In the blobfish's native environment, its shape is far more streamlined than we perceive it to be on land. Photographs taken at the surface, where the pressure is dramatically lower, show a creature that looks saggy and melted. But that's a distortion caused by bringing a deep-sea animal into an unnatural place. In its true home, the blobfish's body holds together more firmly, its gelatinous tissues compacted slightly by the pressure, giving it a more balanced appearance. Even here, its buoyant design remains perfectly suited to its needs. Think of how efficient that is, how extraordinary. In a world that demands constant movement, the blobfish survives by not moving. In a sea full of swimmers, it floats, and this is no accident. This is the result of millennia of adaptation, of natural selection fine-tuning a creature to survive not through dominance but through stillness. It is nature's quiet design, a perfect equilibrium between body and environment. What would it feel like to be the blobfish? To float, weightless and unhurried, in cold, endless darkness. To have no need for ambition, no instinct to struggle, no urge to rise above or sink below, just to drift. To be exactly as you are, in the space where you belong, held by the pressure of the deep ocean like a hand beneath your body. That is the world of the blobfish. And maybe, just maybe, there is something to learn from that. In a society that often prizes busyness, urgency and constant motion, the blobfish offers another path, a path of gentle presence, of calm endurance, of trust in the quiet forces that hold us up, to float, not because we're trying, but because we've found the place where we no longer have to. That is the soft genius of the blobfish. And it floats without swimming, because it was born to do exactly that. In the silent depths of the ocean, where every movement is precious and every heartbeat a quiet expense, the blobfish has mastered one of the most important principles of deep-sea survival: conservation of energy. Down in the bathyal zone, where it lives suspended just above the ocean floor, life operates at a different rhythm, slower, more patient, and far more economical than the frantic pace of the sunlit surface waters. For the blobfish, success doesn't come from speed or aggression. It comes from doing as little as possible, and doing it exceptionally well. Food is scarce in the deep sea. There are no lush kelp forests swaying in the currents, no coral reefs bursting with prey. The blobfish's world is cold, dark, and minimal. Most of the nutrients that reach these depths come from above, drifting down in tiny flakes called marine snow. A gentle, never-ending rain of organic material from the ocean's upper layers. Now and then, a shrimp or small crustacean might wander by, or a bit of decaying matter might settle to the bottom. But for the most part, meals are rare and unpredictable. In such an environment, wasting energy is not just risky, it can be fatal. There are no do-overs in the deep. Every calorie must count. That's why the blobfish has evolved a lifestyle that revolves around using the bare minimum of energy. It doesn't chase prey, doesn't flee from predators, it doesn't swim for pleasure or exploration. Instead, it floats patiently, passively, and persistently. It waits for food to come to it, and when it does, it opens its mouth and lets the current carry the meal in. It is the ultimate minimalist. This strategy is reflected in every part of its anatomy. The blobfish has very little muscle tissue. In fact, it's so lacking in muscular strength that if it were placed in a typical aquarium, it wouldn't be able to swim around the tank. But in the deep sea, muscles aren't needed. The water is dense and the pressure is high, making it easier for soft-bodied creatures to remain suspended with minimal effort. Without strong muscles, the blobfish saves enormous amounts of energy, avoiding the costly maintenance that other fish require to keep their bodies functioning. It also has no need for high-speed reactions. There's nothing to chase, and not much that would want to chase it. It's not particularly tasty to predators, and its gelatinous body offers little in terms of reward for those looking for a high-protein meal. Its lack of motion and nondescript appearance may even help it go unnoticed altogether. Camouflage through plainness, safety through invisibility. And so the blobfish drifts, suspended in its quiet world. burning hardly any energy at all. Every aspect of its design serves this principle. Its buoyant body means it doesn't have to expend energy swimming to stay afloat. Its feeding style, passive and opportunistic, means it doesn't burn calories hunting. Even its soft, squishy flesh is a kind of energetic efficiency. Why build a strong, rigid skeleton if you don't need one? Why grow powerful muscles if you never use them? In the deep sea, softness is not weakness. It is strategy. It is survival. Other deep-sea creatures follow similar patterns, but few are as thoroughly committed as the blobfish. Some rely on bioluminescence to attract prey, expending energy to generate light in the darkness. Others use sharp teeth or venom to defend themselves, requiring metabolic costs that must be offset by more frequent meals. But the blobfish uses none of these tactics. It doesn't glow, doesn't sting, doesn't lunge. It waits, it endures, it floats in stillness until the ocean offers it something to eat, and then it gently accepts. This patient, energy-conserving approach isn't just a clever adaptation, it's a way of life. It's a rhythm that aligns perfectly with the deep sea's quiet pulse. The blobfish doesn't fight the current. It lets it move around and through it. It doesn't challenge the rules of its environment, it embodies them. In doing so, it reveals something profound about life in extreme conditions, that survival often depends not on doing more, but on doing less, on knowing when to act and when to simply let things be. There is a certain elegance in this economy of effort. It reminds us that in nature, energy is a sacred currency. Every heartbeat, every flick of a fin, every breath must be earned, spent, and balanced. The blobfish spends as little as possible, storing its precious energy reserves for only the most essential tasks, eating, existing, and waiting. And perhaps there is something we can learn from that. In our world where urgency and busyness are often mistaken for purpose, the blobfish offers a quieter wisdom. It teaches us that stillness is not laziness, that rest is not failure, and that sometimes the best use of energy is simply not to use it at all. It floats not because it must, but because it can, because its body, its environment, and its needs are perfectly in tune. So there it remains, a soft shadow in the deep, floating in patient silence, conserving every bit of life within. The blobfish, by doing almost nothing, manages to do exactly what it needs to survive. And in that stillness there is a quiet, powerful kind of success. The blobfish does not chase. It does not hunt. It does not stalk its prey through shadowy canyons or burst forth in ambush like some deep-sea predator. Its method of feeding is as passive and gentle as the rest of its life. In fact, watching a blobfish eat would hardly seem like eating at all. There's no snapping, no chewing, no violence. Instead, it waits, and when the right moment arrives, it simply opens its mouth and allows gravity and chance to do the rest. Its diet is modest, humble, and fitting for a creature of such quiet temperament. The blobfish lives just above the sea floor, where the cold mud is dusted with the remnants of life from above. Bits of plankton, tiny crustaceans, marine snow, and decaying organic matter drift downward from higher waters, eventually settling into the depths like ash from a distant fire. This slow rain of nutrients is the primary food source in the deep sea, and the blobfish is perfectly positioned to take advantage of it. Among the blobfish's favoured meals are small amphipods, shrimp-like crustaceans that scurry along the seabed. These tiny creatures are often carried by the currents, tumbling slowly past the blobfish's unmoving form. It doesn't need to strike or lunge, it simply opens its mouth when something edible comes within reach. With a slow inhalation and a slight change in water pressure, the prey is drawn in, swallowed whole, and digested. The process is so relaxed, so minimal, that it's more like breathing than feeding. Sometimes the blobfish may ingest detritus, decaying bits of fish, jellyfish fragments, or particles of marine snow that happen to drift too close. It is not picky. In the deep ocean you can't afford to be. Food is rare, and survival favours the unselective. Anything organic, anything that offers a trace of nutrition, is a welcome gift. This open-minded diet is part of the blobfish's strength. It doesn't specialise, it adapts, it accepts what the ocean brings. This feeding method, called opportunistic suction feeding, is not unique to the blobfish, but few creatures perform it with such extreme stillness. Most suction feeders still rely on some movement, a fin twitch to approach, a flick of the tail to position themselves. But the blobfish remains almost entirely motionless. Its buoyant body allows it to hover inches above the seafloor without sinking, and its slow metabolism means it can go for long periods without eating. It doesn't need to eat every day. Sometimes it might go weeks without a proper meal, and when something finally arrives, it responds with quiet acceptance rather than hunger-fueled urgency. To observe a blobfish feeding in its natural environment would feel almost meditative. Picture it, suspended just above the sediment, surrounded by cold and silence, its round eyes gazing blankly ahead. A faint shimmer in the water approaches, a drifting copepod, or a drifting particle of jelly. With no change in expression, no fanfare or frenzy, the blobfish opens its mouth and allows the morsel to vanish inside. There is no crunch, no satisfaction, no drama, just the continuation of quiet existence. This lack of effort is not laziness. It is brilliance. Every part of the blobfish's feeding process is governed by the same principle that defines its whole being: conserve energy. In a place where energy is life and where food is uncertain, it makes no sense to chase after prey that may escape or to burn calories in pursuit of something that might not be caught. The blobfish's entire strategy is patience, and patience in the deep is a superpower. Even its mouth is shaped for this lifestyle. Broad and wide with soft, flexible tissue, it functions like a gentle vacuum, capable of drawing in small particles or tiny animals with the simplest of movements. There are no large teeth, no cutting surfaces. This isn't a mouth designed for tearing. It's a mouth designed for welcoming whatever the sea has to offer. And so the blobfish feeds as it lives, gently, slowly, and with minimal fuss. In a world where many animals must hunt or flee to survive, the blobfish drifts through life, accepting what comes, releasing what does not. Its feeding method mirrors a deeper truth about its existence. It is not here to conquer or to fight. It is here to endure, to persist, and to thrive by doing less, not more. There is something beautifully zen in this. While other creatures chase, the blobfish waits. While others struggle, the blobfish accepts. Its meals come not through effort, but through alignment with its world. It survives because it knows how to be still, how to remain soft in a hard environment, how to receive instead of pursue. And in doing so, it reminds us that sometimes the best way to get what we need is not by grasping, but by allowing. Floating in the darkness, nourished by the falling fragments of faraway life, the blobfish continues its quiet, uninterrupted existence. One tiny meal at a time, one gentle breath at a time, it eats without moving, feeds without chasing, and lives without forcing. In the deepest corners of the earth, this is not the weakness, it is wisdom. In the cold, inky depths of the ocean where the blobfish makes its home, life unfolds in slow motion. This is a world of shadows, silence, and immense pressure. A realm beyond sunlight, beyond storms, beyond the chaos of the surface. It may seem empty at first glance, but look more closely, and you'll discover that the deep sea is quietly teeming with life. Strange life. beautiful life. Life that, like the blobfish, has been sculpted by time and pressure into forms unlike anything seen in the upper ocean. Surrounding the blobfish are fellow dwellers of the deep, creatures that, like it, have made peace with the darkness. These companions do not rush. They do not glow with bright colours or dart about in frenzied schools. They too are quiet. They too are built for patience, stillness, and survival in a place where the world's rules are ancient and slow. One of the blobfish's closest neighbours on the seafloor might be the sea pen, a colonial creature that looks more like a plant than an animal. Rooted into the sediment like a feather sprouting from the mud, the sea pen sways gently in the currents. Its soft branches filter plankton and detritus from the water, feeding not with mouths or teeth, but with tiny tentacles extended in perfect stillness. The blobfish might float near a forest of these delicate animals, watching their silent ballet as they wave and pulse with the rhythm of the sea. Then there are the brittle stars, long-limbed sleep and relatives of sea stars that creep slowly across the sea bottom. They move with a ghostly grace, reaching out their slender arms to scavenge food from the sediment. Their movements are careful and cautious, their presence more felt than seen. A blobfish hovering above would see their trails in the silt, a gentle mark of movement in an otherwise undisturbed landscape. Small crabs also inhabit this deep domain. They scuttle quietly across the mud, searching for scraps of food, sometimes pausing beside the blobfish as if acknowledging a fellow traveller in the darkness. These crabs are not the aggressive types seen in tide pools or reefs. They are slow, purposeful, conserving energy just like their gelatinous neighbour. Sometimes they climb over rocks that have tumbled down from ancient undersea cliffs, or disappear into the mouths of burrows hidden beneath the sediment. Occasionally, a sea cucumber will slide slowly across the ocean floor. These tubular creatures, with soft, leathery bodies and rows of tiny feet, feed by ingesting sand and organic particles, digesting what they can and leaving trails of sifted sediment behind. They are the janitors of the deep sea, transforming waste into order in the quiet way that nature always finds balance. The blobfish floats nearby, indifferent but connected, a fellow member of this slow-moving world. The deep also hides more elusive life. Ghostly fishes with long fins and pale skin, their bodies semi-transparent and their organs visible beneath the surface. Some are dragonfish, with needle-like teeth and photophores that shimmer faintly in the blackness. Others are snailfish, soft-bodied and delicate like the blobfish itself, adapted to depths even more extreme. They too float and drift, feeding in silence, rarely seen, rarely moving. Their presence is a whisper. There are the occasional flashes of bioluminescence, tiny sparks from jellyfish, comb jellies, or glowing plankton drifting by. These glimmers are not sources of light but of life itself, brief illuminations in a world otherwise wrapped in shadow. To the blobfish, these might be signals or simply passing stars in the ocean's own galaxy. They provide no threat, no comfort, only movement in a realm where stillness is the default. And sometimes larger shadows pass through. Ancient sharks adapted to the cold and the deep, or massive isopods that resemble oversized pillbugs crawling slowly across the sea floor. These creatures move with the weight of the ages, unchanged by time, driven not by hunger or curiosity, but by the same slow pulse that drives all life here. They do not see the blobfish as food, nor as competition. In this deep, life flows in parallel rather than in conflict. Even the terrain itself is alive in its own way. The ocean floor is not flat, but full of ridges, canyons, and deep sediment valleys. Occasionally, hydrothermal vents or cold seeps punctuate the seascape, though the blobfish is more often found far from these oases of chemical activity. Still, the seafloor changes gradually, sculpted by falling debris, underwater landslides and the quiet accumulation of marine snow. The blobfish floats above all this like a lantern adrift over a silent world, casting no light, but sensing everything. What's most remarkable about the blobfish's surroundings is how interconnected and calm they are. There are no loud alarms, no urgent chases, no crowded reefs bustling with competition. There is only space, slowness, and an eerie, sacred kind of peace. Every creature exists in a delicate balance. Every movement is deliberate. Every life is adapted to endure without wasting. In this forgotten world, the blobfish is not alone. It is part of a quiet community, a deep-sea village of peculiar beings who survive together in the absence of light. They are not dramatic. They are not glamorous. But they are extraordinary in their endurance. They are artists of adaptation, surviving with the barest of resources and thriving in the least likely of places. And so the blobfish floats among them, not as an oddity, not as an outcast, but as one of many quiet miracles that call the deep sea home. The world of the blobfish is defined not just by darkness or silence, but by something far more powerful and invisible: pressure. In the deep ocean, pressure is not just a background condition. It is the constant, all-encompassing force that shapes everything. It crushes, compresses, and confines. It turns metal into mush and air into nothing. For the blobfish, pressure is not an obstacle. It is the very essence of its existence. To understand the blobfish, you must understand the weight of the deep. At sea level, we live under one atmosphere of pressure, caused by the weight of the air above us. We don't notice it. Our bodies are built to withstand it. But for every 10 meters, or about 33 feet, that you descend underwater, the pressure increases by another atmosphere. By the time you reach the blobfish's home, usually found between 2,000 and 4,000 feet below the surface, you're experiencing pressures over 100 times greater than what we feel at the surface. That means that for every square inch of a blobfish's body, the ocean is pressing inward with hundreds of pounds of force. Imagine carrying a small car on your shoulders. Now imagine carrying that weight across every inch of your body. That's what living under deep sea pressure is like. For most organisms, this would be intolerable. Gas-filled cavities would collapse, rigid bones would crack, muscles and tissues would be compressed into dysfunction. Yet the blobfish lives here effortlessly, not just enduring the pressure, but existing in complete harmony with it. Its secret lies in its softness. The blobfish's body is made not of bone or muscle, but of a gelatinous material that yields gently under pressure instead of resisting it. This is not weakness. It's a form of biological wisdom. Rather than fighting the crushing force of the water, the blobfish flows with it. Its tissues do not compress in dangerous ways because they are already partially compressed, already dense and flexible. There are no gas-filled organs to rupture, no swim bladder to implode. There is only softness, adapted perfectly to a heavy world. This is one of the reasons why the blobfish looks so dramatically different when brought to the surface. At depth, its body holds a natural rounded shape, compacted just enough by the pressure to appear whole and intact. But when it's pulled upward, away from the enormous pressure that normally supports its structure, everything changes. The tissue expands slightly, then collapses under its own weight. The soft body sags. The face seems to melt. What we see in surface photos, the iconic sad-looking blob, is not the true blobfish at all. It is a distorted version, a body taken far out of its natural pressure and left unsupported. That transformation can seem comical, even tragic, but in truth it reveals just how finely tuned the blobfish is to its environment. It doesn't merely live under pressure, it requires it. That crushing force, so deadly to most creatures, is what holds the blobfish together. It provides the invisible structure that the blobfish's body lacks. In the deep, pressure becomes scaffolding. It shapes the blobfish like the hands of a sculptor pressing against soft clay. In a way, pressure is the blobfish's skeleton. Other creatures in the deep have also adapted in fascinating ways. Some use specialized proteins that remain flexible under high pressure. Others have bones that are thinner and more pliable. Some possess enzymes that only function correctly in high-pressure environments, but few have gone as far as the blobfish, which has practically abandoned the idea of structural support altogether. Its survival strategy is total surrender, a yielding to the deep that becomes its strength. And the pressure doesn't just affect biology. It changes physics, chemistry, and time itself. Water molecules are packed more tightly. Light vanishes almost entirely. Sound travels faster but echoes strangely in the dense medium. Movement becomes sluggish, and the passage of time seems to slow, not because it literally does, but because everything under pressure moves more cautiously. The blobfish drifts through this thickened world at a pace that matches its surroundings. It does not resist the weight. It harmonizes with it. In a poetic sense, the blobfish teaches us that pressure doesn't always have to be fought. In our own lives, pressure often feels like a burden, something to push against, to escape from, to defeat. But the blobfish doesn't battle pressure. It becomes one with it. Its body is soft because the world is hard. Its motion is minimal because the water is heavy. Its silence is deep because the pressure doesn't allow for loudness. It is the art of living with, not against. And so, as it floats silently above the ocean floor, the blobfish is held not just by water but by weight. Cradled by invisible force shaped by conditions so extreme they would destroy most other creatures, it endures. Not through strength, not through struggle, but through adaptation so complete that pressure, once feared, becomes a partner in survival. The pressure of the deep is not kind. It is absolute. But for the blobfish, it is not a punishment. It is home, and in that home it floats, soft and still, a creature made not to fight the world, but to understand it so completely that it becomes part of its rhythm. There is no resistance, no panic, no pain, just perfect pressure and a body designed to receive it. When people first encounter images of the blobfish, especially those taken out of water, they are often stunned, sometimes amused, sometimes perplexed, sometimes even a little horrified. The creature appears saggy and sad, with drooping skin and a bulbous, almost cartoonishly human-like nose that seems to have melted under the weight of disappointment. It's been called the world's ugliest animal, compared to blobs of jelly, melted candles, and even grumpy old men. But what most people don't realize is that the blobfish they are seeing is not the real blobfish at all. It's a distorted version, a creature violently removed from its natural habitat and displayed under conditions it was never meant to endure. To understand why the blobfish appears so dramatically different at the surface, we must return to the concept of pressure. In its natural environment, the blobfish lives at depths of 600 to 200 meters, sometimes even deeper, where the water pressure is dozens or even hundreds of times greater than what we experience on land. In those depths, the pressure compresses everything, water, bone, tissue, into tighter, more compact forms. The blobfish has evolved not just to tolerate this environment, but to be dependent on it. Its body structure, its buoyancy, and even its appearance rely on being held together by the crushing weight of the deep sea. Down there, the blobfish looks entirely different. It doesn't sew. It doesn't drip. It doesn't look like a melting wax figure. Instead, it is more compact, more streamlined, more like a soft but well-shaped deep-sea fish. Its gelatinous body, which appears formless at the surface, is gently moulded by the pressure of its surroundings into a consistent, stable shape. Its wide mouth rests in a neutral position, not drooping. Its eyes sit appropriately in its head. Its soft tissues are just firm enough to give it structure, thanks to the steady hug of the deep sea's crushing embrace. But when the blobfish is pulled rapidly to the surface, everything changes. As it rises, the water pressure drops drastically. At first, the changes are subtle, slight swelling, a loosening of structure. But as the ascent continues, the body can no longer maintain its form. The gelatinous tissue begins to expand, unrestrained by the pressure it once relied on. Water inside the tissues may shift or escape. The soft skin begins to sag. The carefully balanced shape maintained at depth collapses into an unrecognizable mess. What's worse, the blobfish lacks the internal skeletal and muscular reinforcements that many other fish use to hold their bodies together. It has no strong jaw, no solid skull, no ribs to frame its torso. These are heavy, energetically expensive structures that would be liabilities in the deep sea, where conserving weight and energy is crucial. But those same adaptations, which make the blobfish a perfect creature of the deep, become dramatic weaknesses when it's brought to a world it was never meant to see. Imagine taking a jelly dessert that has just the right firmness to hold its shape in a small dish, and then plopping it out onto a hot plate under bright lights. It slumps, it slides, it loses its integrity. The blobfish is much the same. Only the transformation is not from heat, but from the sudden release of pressure. It is not melting, it is decompressing. This dramatic change in appearance has led to a widespread misunderstanding of the blobfish. It's easy to laugh at what looks like a sulking, squishy caricature of a fish. And yet, that image is not fair to the animal itself. It's like judging a deep-sea creature for looking strange on land, a place it has never known, a place it cannot survive. The blobfish is not ugly, it is misunderstood. In its true form, the blobfish is a gentle marvel of design. It is the embodiment of adaptation to a specific niche, shaped not for beauty by human standards, but for functionality in one of Earth's most hostile environments. Its body is a living compromise between strength and softness, a balance between lightness and resilience. Its survival strategy doesn't require muscles or bones, it requires quiet compliance with pressure. To see a blobfish at the surface and think that it always looks that way is to miss the entire story of its life. It is a little like judging a butterfly by looking at its crumpled cocoon. The transformation has robbed it of context, and in doing so, distorted the truth. The blobfish's surface appearance is not a reflection of its life, but of its death, an unnatural state caused by rapid removal from a world that shaped every aspect of its being. This misperception is made worse by our human tendency to project emotion onto faces. We see the blobfish's downturned mouth and sagging features and assume it is unhappy, defeated, depressed. But these are not expressions, they are just physical outcomes of a pressure change. The blobfish does not frown, does not pout. It is not sad to see us, it simply exists, adapted to its own silent world, indifferent to the judgments of air-breathing visitors from above. Perhaps if we could see the blobfish where it belongs, nestled in the cold mud of the seafloor, softly floating in its pressurized cocoon, we would feel differently. We might see not a blob, but a miracle of evolution. A creature that needs no bones to stand tall in its world, no flash or speed to survive. We might see elegance in its stillness, intelligence in its adaptation, and dignity in its deep-sea simplicity. In truth, the blobfish is a reminder of how deeply context matters. Out of water, under strange conditions, anyone might look like a blob, but in the right environment, with the right pressure, we become exactly what we were meant to be. The blobfish, in its world, is not ugly, it is perfect. And that is something worth remembering, not just about strange creatures in the sea, but about ourselves. The blobfish has long been the subject of jokes, memes, and harsh labels. Its most famous image, slumped, saggy and expressionless, has been shared around the world with captions calling it the world's ugliest animal. It has become a symbol of strangeness, a punchline in the conversation about odd-looking creatures. But these judgments are based on a misunderstanding, and once we look beyond the surface, literally, we discover something remarkable. The blobfish is not an ugly mistake, but a quiet triumph of natural design. It is not a freak. It is a masterpiece of adaptation, shaped with precision by the pressures of the deep. To call the blobfish ugly is to view it through a narrow lens, shaped by surface world aesthetics. We tend to associate beauty with symmetry, colour, sharp lines and expressiveness. But the blobfish doesn't live in a world of sunlight or mirrors. It lives in darkness. It has no predators to impress, no mates to dazzle with colourful fins or complex displays. There is no need for elegance or style in the deep. Down there, beauty is measured not by appearance but by function. Survival is the ultimate form of perfection. In that light, the blobfish is not ugly. It is extraordinary. Its jelly-like body, which seems so strange to us, is perfectly suited to its high-pressure world. Its lack of muscle mass, its absence of bones, its minimal need for motion, these are not flaws, but strategies. Strategies that allow it to float in stillness just above the ocean floor without expending energy. Strategies that keep it from being crushed by the deep sea's unimaginable pressure. Strategies that let it survive in an environment most creatures could never endure. Its face, so often the target of ridicule, is not a face in the human sense. The downturned mouth, the sagging nose-like bump, the wide-set eyes, these are not expressions of emotion. They are features shaped by soft tissue decompressing after being pulled from thousands of feet below. In its natural state, the blobfish doesn't sag or frown. It is round, balanced, compact. The exaggerated features we see in viral images are not what it looks like in its home. They're the result of its body collapsing outside the pressurized world it depends on. If anything, the blobfish's quiet charm lies in its refusal to perform for us. It doesn't sparkle or dance, and it doesn't leap from the water or change colours. It is content to drift slowly in the cold, shadowy silence of the deep. It asks for nothing. It does not seek attention. It exists, perfectly adapted to its niche, living its life without complaint or commotion. There is a kind of dignity in that, an elegance that goes deeper than aesthetics. In many ways, the blobfish stands as a reminder that our definition of beauty is limited. What if we judged every creature by how well it fits into its environment, by how seamlessly it survives, by how little energy it wastes? By that measure, the blobfish would be considered one of the most beautiful animals in the ocean. It is the embodiment of efficiency, a creature that lives in harmony with its world, shaped precisely by the forces around it. And there's something deeply comforting in the blobfish's existence. In a world obsessed with achievement, movement, noise and attention, the blobfish does the opposite. It moves slowly, if at all. It doesn't hunt or chase, it doesn't strive, it floats, it waits, it conserves, it survives. And it does all of this while remaining soft, unarmoured, unthreatening, unassuming. It survives not through force, but through gentleness. Perhaps that's the real lesson the blobfish offers, that there is strength in softness, that there is wisdom in stillness, that being perfectly suited to your world, even if no one else understands it, is a kind of quiet greatness. The blobfish doesn't care if we think it's ugly. It doesn't need us to like it. It doesn't even know we exist. It has found a way to live peacefully in one of the most hostile places on Earth. It has nothing to prove, and maybe, just maybe, that's what makes it beautiful. There is a subtle grace in the blobfish's existence, one that can only be seen when we stop looking through a lens of judgment and start seeing through a lens of understanding. It is not a creature designed to entertain or inspire awe in humans. It is a creature that simply fits its world. It reminds us that there are many ways to be beautiful, many ways to be successful, and many ways to be alive. The blobfish, in all its soft stillness, is living proof. Seeing a blobfish in its natural habitat is something that very few humans have experienced. The reason is simple. The blobfish lives in one of the most inaccessible regions of the ocean, the deep-sea twilight and midnight zones, far beyond the reach of sunlight and traditional diving equipment. At depths ranging from 600 to over 200 meters, this murky, high-pressure world is visited only by the most advanced deep-sea technology. And even then, spotting a blobfish is an exceedingly rare event. In fact, nearly everything we know about the blobfish has come from moments of chance, brief glimpses during deep-sea trawls, submersible expeditions, or remote-operated vehicle ROV footage. It remains, in many ways, a ghost, an elusive presence that drifts quietly just beyond the lens of discovery. Unlike surface-dwelling fish that dart in schools or swim boldly through coral reefs, the blobfish gives us no reason to notice it. It does not glow with bioluminescence. It does not swim in large numbers. It does not move with the sharp, angular motions that draw attention. It hovers just above the seafloor, unmoving for long stretches of time, indistinguishable from the sediment and stones it drifts above. Its colouring, pale, soft pink or beige, is perfectly designed to blend in with the cold, muted tones of the deep. There is nothing flashy about the blobfish. It does not announce itself. It exists in stillness, camouflaged not just by appearance but by behaviour. Because of this, deep-sea researchers are often unaware of a blobfish's presence until one is accidentally caught in a trawl net, an event that is both revealing and heartbreaking. Trawling is a common method used by deep-sea fisheries and research vessels to collect specimens from the ocean floor. But it is not gentle. Creatures that are adapted to crushing pressure, total darkness, and silent waters are suddenly yanked upward through rapidly changing conditions. The results are traumatic. Pressure drops rapidly. Bodies that were balanced perfectly for deep conditions expand, distort, or collapse. By the time the blobfish reaches the surface, it is no longer the creature it was below. Its soft tissue balloons, its body slumps. The quiet precision of its natural form is gone. What is left is a swollen, formless version of its true self, a misunderstood caricature of a deeply sensitive organism. This is one reason why so few accurate images exist of the blobfish as it truly lives. Capturing it in situ, alive, unbothered, resting just above the seafloor requires deep-sea cameras, perfect timing, and incredible luck. Even among seasoned marine biologists, such encounters are considered rare treasures. Most of what we know about its behaviour, habitat, and physical characteristics comes from indirect observation, educated inference, and comparisons with related species such as other fathead sculpins. And yet, every time we do see a blobfish in its element, we are reminded of its quiet beauty. On rare ROV dives, when a blobfish has been spotted floating serenely in the deep, its presence feels almost sacred. The lights of the submersible catch its outline slowly emerging from the darkness, rounded, pale, unhurried. It does not flee, it does not react. It remains still, as though the camera does not exist. Perhaps it doesn't even register the intrusion. Or perhaps it knows instinctively that whatever is approaching is not a threat. These moments are awe-inspiring not because the blobfish does something dramatic, but because it does nothing. Its stillness is what captivates. In a world so unfamiliar, so extreme, to see a creature living in absolute peace is deeply moving. It floats above the seafloor like a pale lantern in the darkness. Its body, held in gentle tension by the pressure of the deep, maintains a soft but distinct shape. It doesn't hunt, it doesn't interact, it simply exists. and in that existence it speaks volumes about the resilience of life. The rarity of blobfish sightings is also a reminder of just how vast and unexplored the ocean truly is. We have mapped the surface of Mars in greater detail than we have explored our own seafloor. The deep ocean remains Earth's final frontier, and the blobfish is one of its hidden residents, living proof that life has reached even the quietest, most isolated corners of our world. The fact that we have seen so few of them suggests that their populations are either small or spread very thinly across enormous ranges. Or perhaps they're simply too good at disappearing into the silence. As deep-sea exploration technologies improve, we may begin to see more of the blobfish in its natural state. High-resolution cameras, quieter submersibles, and more sensitive sensors might allow us to observe without disturbing. We might finally be able to witness what a day in the life of a blobfish truly looks like, the way it gently rises and sinks in the current, the moments it opens its mouth to accept passing food, the subtle twitch of its fins to adjust its position. But even if we never see the blobfish often, its presence still matters. It stands as a symbol of what remains hidden, what we have yet to understand, and what we must protect. The deep sea is under increasing threat from human activity, deep-sea mining, trawling, and pollution. These actions risk destroying habitats we barely know exist, home to creatures we may only glimpse once before they are gone. The blobfish, elusive as it is, reminds us of the importance of humility in the face of nature's complexity. Just because we cannot see something often does not mean it is not valuable. Just because we do not understand something fully does not mean it is not worth our respect. In its rare drifting moments beneath the sea, the blobfish continues to live out its life in quiet obscurity. It does not need to be seen, it does not need to be known, but for those lucky enough to witness it in its true form, there is a deep sense of privilege. To see the blobfish as it really is, not the sagging image on the internet, but the floating living spirit of the deep, is to glimpse a world that is still full of mystery, still untouched by noise, still sacred. And that, perhaps, is what makes it most special of all. The blobfish is a living reminder of the incredible diversity of life on Earth and the remarkable ways that evolution shapes creatures to survive even in the most extreme conditions. It exists in a realm so distant from our everyday experience that it challenges everything we think we know about what it means to be an animal, to be alive, and to be beautiful. More than just a curiosity, the blobfish embodies a profound lesson about adaptation, resilience, and the hidden wonders of the natural world. Unlike creatures that rely on speed, strength, or camouflage, the blobfish survives by embracing its environment in the gentlest way possible. It is a master of surrender, not fighting against the crushing pressure of the deep, but yielding to it, flowing with it, and making it part of its own body. This surrender is not a weakness, but a form of strength. The blobfish's body, soft and gelatinous, is a marvel of evolutionary engineering, perfectly balanced to float just above the seafloor without wasting energy on swimming or hunting. It is buoyant because it is less dense than the surrounding water, a natural balloon drifting silently in the depths. In many ways, the blobfish symbolizes the beauty of being perfectly suited to your place in the world. It has no desire to be anything other than what it is. It has no need to impress or compete. It simply exists in harmony with its environment. This quiet acceptance is a kind of elegance that goes beyond the flashy colours or fierce behaviours we often associate with beauty in animals. It is the beauty of survival through adaptation, of a life lived fully within the constraints and gifts of one's habitat. This concept of beauty through function challenges human ideas about appearance and worth. The blobfish's form may seem strange or even unattractive to us, because it does not conform to our standards of symmetry, brightness, or agility. But those standards are shaped by surface-dwelling life, and by human perceptions. In the deep sea, where light is absent and pressure is immense, the rules change completely. There, beauty is measured by the ability to endure, to conserve energy, and to exist without disruption. The blobfish also reminds us that life takes many forms, and that every organism is a unique expression of the environment it inhabits. Its existence highlights the incredible creativity of evolution, a process that finds countless solutions to the challenges of survival. Some creatures grow armor, others develop speed. The blobfish grows softness. Some light up the dark, others camouflage in bright colors. The blobfish drifts in muted tones, blending seamlessly with the seafloor. There is no one right way to live, no single definition of success. The blobfish's way is simply another thread in the rich tapestry of life. Moreover, the blobfish encourages us to look beyond appearances and to appreciate the deeper qualities that sustain life. It teaches patience, quiet endurance, and the power of stillness. It thrives not by exerting force but by yielding, not by rushing but by waiting. It conserves energy, embraces its limitations, and finds strength in softness. These are lessons that resonate far beyond the deep ocean, offering wisdom for how we might live more balanced, harmonious lives. The deep sea itself, the home of the blobfish, is one of the last great frontiers on Earth. It is a place largely unexplored, full of unknown species and ecosystems that continue to surprise and inspire scientists. The blobfish stands as a sentinel of this mysterious world, a symbol of what remains hidden beneath the waves. Protecting the deep sea is not just about preserving resources or scientific discovery. It is about respecting a part of our planet that supports life in ways we're only beginning to understand. As we consider the blobfish's role in the ecosystem, we realize that it is not just a passive drifter, but an integral part of the deep sea community. By feeding on detritus and small creatures, it helps recycle nutrients and maintain the balance of the ocean floor. Its presence supports other organisms, contributing to a delicate web of life that sustains itself in darkness and silence. In reflecting on the blobfish, we also confront our own assumptions about worth and value. Just as we might dismiss the blobfish based on its unusual appearance, we sometimes overlook the quiet, unassuming parts of ourselves or others that do not fit conventional ideals. The blobfish reminds us to celebrate diversity, to honor all forms of life, and to recognize that every being has a place and a purpose. In the end, the blobfish is a testament to the resilience of life and the infinite possibilities of nature's creativity. It is not merely an oddity to be mocked or misunderstood, but a profound example of adaptation and harmony. It floats gently in the deep, a living symbol of survival through softness, of strength in stillness, and of the extraordinary beauty that lies beyond what the eye can easily see. And so the blobfish invites us to look deeper, to appreciate the unseen, and to find wonder not only in what is dazzling and fast, but also in what is quiet, slow, and soft. It teaches us that sometimes the most extraordinary things are those that quietly endure, perfectly themselves, in a world of endless change. As we prepare to leave the quiet depths and begin our gentle ascent back toward the sunlit surface, it's worth taking a moment to reflect on the world we are leaving behind. A world where the blobfish floats in tranquil stillness, carried by currents too subtle to feel, in a realm where time seems to slow and every movement is measured. The deep sea is a place of calm endurance, and the blobfish embodies that calm in every inch of its soft, yielding body. Floating softly above the cold, silty ocean floor, the blobfish drifts in a way that invites us to slow down with it. It moves not by force but by gentle suspension, allowing the water itself to carry it. There is no rush, no struggle, no need to swim faster or harder. Its life is a quiet meditation on patience and presence, qualities that we too can learn from as we navigate our own often noisy and hurried worlds. Imagine yourself as the blobfish, weightless and unhurried, held by the invisible embrace of the ocean's pressure. Feel the gentle currents rocking you back and forth, lulling you into a state of calm acceptance. Your body softens, your mind slows, and the endless chatter of the surface world fades into silence. There is only this moment, this peaceful float in the deep blue. In the deep sea, survival depends on conservation, of energy, of movement, of will. The blobfish reminds us that sometimes doing less is doing more. Sometimes surrendering to the flow is the strongest thing we can do. Its soft body, held steady by the crushing weight of the ocean, offers a powerful metaphor for resilience, being flexible enough to yield, yet strong enough to endure. As we leave the blobfish's domain, we carry with us the lesson of stillness. We remember that in the midst of chaos, there is a place for quiet. In the rush of life, there is value in slowing down. Like the blobfish, curious. We can find balance not by fighting against the current, but by floating gently with it. The ocean above begins to lighten as we ascend, the pressure easing, the colours returning, and the sounds growing louder. The sharp edges of the surface world come back into focus, yet within us the calmness of the deep remains, a steady anchor in the storms of daily life. The blobfish's silent strength becomes a whisper in our minds, a reminder to pause, breathe, and float in moments of stillness. So as you settle into this quiet place, whether you're preparing for sleep, taking a break, or simply seeking peace, imagine the blobfish beside you, a soft shape drifting serenely in the depths. Let its gentle buoyancy inspire your own calm. Let its effortless float remind you that you don't always have to struggle or strive. Sometimes the greatest power lies in the ability to be still, to rest, and to trust that the currents will carry you when the time is right. With this peaceful image, allow yourself to drift gently through waves of relaxation, through soothing thoughts, and into the quiet depths of rest. Like the blobfish, may you find the grace to float softly, buoyed by the world around you, held by the gentle flow of life itself. And as we return to the light, carrying the serenity of the deep within us, we are reminded that no matter where we go or what challenges we face, there is always a place for calm, always a place to float, always a place to be exactly as we are, soft, still, and perfectly balanced in the great ocean of existence.